it means first man in the ancient tongue of the Anunnaki. So the Anunnaki tongue is not the old language that was spoken on the earth. It is the alien tongue that came to the earth. And I can speak it to you. I mean, I remember it absolutely fluently. It's very close to Atlantean. And no wonder, because, I mean, Thoth took over Atlantis. So the bottom line of it is that the experimentation to create a superior man, overlooking the fact that we had the true humans inside the planet at that time, they were trying to make a superior man that could be a worker race. Because they had the Anunnaki, who are the people that came from Nibiru, they had men come here to work, to try, because they had to mine the gold. And the problem was that they rebelled. They said, we're not slave laborers, we have all from good families, sorry, we don't do this kind of work. And so off they went. And then they said, okay, look, we've got a problem here. We need to be providing the gold for the atmosphere to keep it intact. And what we need is we need a hybrid race. That's when they found the Neanderthal-like beings that had been left over from Orion experiments, where they used ape, they used the ancient apes that were there, they used humans, and they tried to blend them so that there would be a very tough physical specimen. Well, tough physical specimen did not equate with intelligence. So, you know, they abandoned their experiments after a while. They wanted to find the answer here and take it back to Orion. But the Anunnaki took that one step further, and they tried to create a hybrid race between Nibiruans and humans. And they even tried it with those creatures. That didn't work at all. They tried it with humans, but they found that they were sterile. If they produced a hybrid being, they were sterile and they could not produce. So what happened is that they eventually had some of the women of Nibiru carry the baby in their uterus, the embryo in their uterus, and they finally had success. And the success came with two beings, Adam and Eve. You know, Eve being taken from Adam's rib, etc., etc. It's that she was a secondary creation taken from his genetic makeup, from his DNA. They made her. So that a piece of him made her. These are the two first successful humans that were created as hybrids. Some of the experimentation of, you know, the Neanderthal, very tough like humans. The African tribes are extremely mixed. Some of them are highly refined, intelligent beings. Others are pretty savage. Others have come from Egypt. Others have come from a landmass that sank off the coast of South America, between South Africa and South America. I think it's called Guadalajara land. Sank there. That was a big landmass the size of New Zealand that sank there. Some of the tribes came from actually bigger than New Zealand. Some of the tribes came from there. And then there are some, like the Maasai, that say that they came from the Israelites. And their father's Abraham. And this is what their history tells. When the Christian came to teach them the Bible, they already knew about the old patriarchs. And then there are races like Simon's ancestry came from Egypt. And some, you know, so they've come from all different levels. But there were some races in Africa that were leftover remnants that are incredibly savage. The savagery that is going on from Africans to Africans in Africa right now is unbelievable. I know a young woman in Portland that's gone there as part of the Peace Corps. She is emotionally destroyed by what she has seen happen to the women and the young women and the young men of the tribes. They bring in daily into these makeshift hospitals. You know, they chop the hands off the adults, but the young children are brutalized. And the horror of it, these creatures, they look like ordinary Africans, they're not. They're ancestors, and when the electricity goes very high, they go very, very deep into a place of lightlessness. They're like the opposite. And so the more enlightened the planet becomes, the more savage they have become. And they are from these experiments. Adam and Eve were the first successful hybrids. And this actually, there was a genetic laboratory near Victoria Falls, which is now in Zimbabwe, just north of South Africa, a genetic library near there. There also was another sacred library called the White Horse Library that was there, renowned for the fact that it had a looking glass that you could see through cycles of destruction. Because mostly prophecies end at one cycle of destruction. But this allows you to see beyond those cycles, which is extremely rare, and unfortunately it was entered into by beings like Thoth and so on that had the control of the planet as their aim. And so it was misused tremendously.
Now, when it comes to capacity for ascension, does it matter how much, is it more human DNA the better, or the less intermixing the better, or is that completely irrelevant? It's just basically everybody ascends at the same time?
The purer the human DNA, and where would we find that? We would find that from the races that came back out from the earth. Because they were in the earth at the time. I was just, up until the time I came here, I was sitting over there making notes of some of the things we spoke of today, and I could see that this 75,000 year ago catastrophe, when the people went under Drum Mountain, and the 7 men eventually, after preparing the library, taking some of the blank records with them, they also went under Drum Mountain. And I'm looking at how long they stayed there, and it looks to me like the people that originally went in there were grandfathers and grandmothers by the time they were able to get out, which means 2 generations, which possibly is 40 or 50 years that they were in there. And they were living off of algae and plants, and they were living off of the blind fish and the pure water there. But it looks to me that at the same time, of course, people went under the Ayers Rock. The old ones in Australia have an entire habitat under Ayers Rock in Australia. There's a whole laboratory, because they've noticed that they keep losing their memory. So they write everything down like a record, but it's not on tablets, it's on the walls of the labyrinth of caves that's in there. It goes under the ground. So they've written everything down, and when they see catastrophes come, they go in there. So they have preserved this strain for them. But the purer the human, the more power they wield. And this is to the exclusion of the original ones who have really never lost their godhood. They just forgot they had it. But
so
they never.
Will all the other races that aren't pure eventually die out?
I have to look at how successful it was, because I remember when the purging was done of the Anunnaki strain in humanity. When these points, which came from the Anunnaki inbreeding, were removed because they were foreign to humanity. They represented the 2 foreign galaxies and 2 foreign peoples that have settled here. The interesting thing is, who's the other? We know the Anunnaki settled here. Who is the other race that has governed the earth? That's the question. And I can sit here and try and find it, or I can just go and look in the records tonight. And then I can tell you tomorrow. But there were 2 foreign races that don't belong here.